Welcome back to Athletic Alert. We're doing a new type of show today that Colin is going to explain.
Yes, if this video gets over 20 likes, we would like to make this a running series, and we're going to call it Overrated or Overhated. We're going to take players in the NFL, and we each took a position, a popular fantasy position. We got Jesse with the quarterbacks, Rob with wide receivers, and I'll be doing running backs. And we're going to discuss 6 players in total, 3 who are overrated and 3 who are overhated. So we're going to start off with our overrated players. Jesse, what do we got?
All right, so as Colin said, I'm going to start at the quarterback position. We're going to do our overrated players first. So we're starting with a pretty good quarterback, Drew Brees of the New Orleans Saints. He had a pretty good first week. 355 yards was actually great. He did throw only 1 touchdown, and he threw a pick. And this is his 15th season, and he's still getting it done, but we're seeing a big decline in his stats from 2013 to 2014. He has increased the interceptions, decreased the passing yards, the passing touchdowns, and along with many other things. This may be due to Jimmy Graham, the loss of Jimmy Graham. He was out for some of the 2014 season, and that may have affected Drew Brees' stats last year because they went down significantly. But now he's got no Jimmy Graham on his team, and his wide receiver core is just dying out slowly. He's got Brandon Cooks as his number 1, who hasn't even proven himself yet. He's played 10 games in his career, and he's started like 7 of them. So you need and Jimmy Graham was a 6'7" top option. He's 5'10", so he's got to deal with throwing to a new kind of guy, and that could be a hard transition for Drew Brees. And at his second receiver, he's got Marcus Colston, he's pretty much done. In 2011 to 2014, he just dropped off. His yards per game went from the 80s in 2011 down to the 70s to the 60s, and ended up in the 50s in 2014. So Marcus Colston's really not getting it done anymore. So he's got Brandon Cooks, but after that, the receiving core is really nothing. Along with that, the rushing on the New Orleans Saints is really improving. Mark Ingram is starting to get a lot of carries and becoming a great running back. And that can only hurt Drew Brees, who usually gets a lot of passing attempts. But the carries from Mark Ingram can really ruin that for him. And due to all this, I think Drew Brees is going to be one of those overrated quarterbacks this year.
Too much name brand value.
Yeah, there is too much name brand value in him. I think his ADP was too high in fantasy leagues. Because he's got some risk on him now.
Right.
He's getting old. This is his 15th season. We'll see how he does. So, Colin, bring us to the running back position.
All right, to the running back position, the overrated guy we chose is Jeremy Hill, the Cincinnati Bengals running back. In Sports Illustrated, before the fantasy season started, they had him ranked as the number 6 running back. I believe that took us all for a big shock. His week 1 stats were pretty good. I mean, 63 rush yards and 2 touchdowns against the Oakland Raiders, which, translates to over 18 fantasy points, which seems really good, but the yardage really wasn't that great. 63 is not amazing. And when you look at his counterpart, the person he splits his carries with, Giovanni Bernard, he got the same rush yards, 63, and he also had 25 reception yards. So Giovanni Bernard had more total yards than Hill.
Yeah.
So if you take away Hill's 2 touchdowns, Giovanni Bernard ends up with more fantasy points. And what's even crazier about that is Hill had 19 carries and he got to 63 yards, 3.3 yards per attempt. But Gio only had 8 carries and he got 63 yards. That's 7.9 yards per attempt per carry. It's a 70% to 30% Hill to Bernard split right now.
Yeah.
But it looks like Bernard's, being a bigger producer for them. So, in the future, that could come back to 50-50 or 60-40. It could move around. I don't know if you guys remember, they had Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, and
Yes.
It worked out the same. Giovanni Bernard came in and just took Green Ellis's job, and now Hill came in and took Bernard's job. So I just think over there in Cincinnati, Hill's not the clear-cut number one running back right now. Could change.
They always have a switch-off kind of thing going on. For the last 10 years, it's been like that.
Yeah, and what scares me even more is, yes, he got 18 fantasy points. However, you look at weeks 2 through 6, he's got the Chargers, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Seahawks, and the Bills. I cannot think of worse defensive matchups for the next 4 weeks. I think he's overrated. And he's just not going to be as good in those coming weeks. I think if you have him right now and somebody can give you good trade value, you might want to ship him off. Rob, wide receiver.
All right, my wide receiver is the wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills, Percy Harvin. He had a great week 1. He finished the day with 14.8 fantasy points, which is really good. But he's an overrated guy because last year there was some problems in the locker room. The Jets ended up picking him up. Everyone thought, oh, he's going to shine with the Jets. He's a star-studded wide receiver. Didn't work out that way in New York. That's why he went to Buffalo this year. I also think it had to do with Rex Ryan, but that's another thing. He's currently owned in 41% of fantasy leagues. That's increased by 23% within a week. So people are buying in on him right now. This next matchup tomorrow, week 2, he plays New England, which is ranked 5th against defending wide receivers, which is really good. So his value is going to decrease starting next week. And he plays Miami afterwards, New York Giants, Tennessee, Cincinnati, and Jacksonville. And another thing is Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins got 0 reception yards. He had he was targeted 3 times. He didn't catch anything. Sammy Watkins finished with 6 touchdowns last year and 982 receiving yards. That's 982. That's almost 1,000. That's great for a rookie last season. I think he just had one bad game, and that their new quarterback, Tyrod Taylor, was depending on Percy just for one game, and Sammy Watkins will get back into it, decreasing Percy's value. If you have him on your team, I would trade him right now because this is how high he's going to be. I guarantee he will not get any more points than he did week 1 the rest of the season because he faces some pretty tough defenses after his bye week in the second half of the season. Jesse, what overhated quarterback do we have?
Well, we got a guy who had a very bad first week, amongst the worst of all the quarterbacks in the league, and that's Denver Broncos quarterback Peyton Manning. And I think it's pretty easy to say he'll come back from that week 1. He already showed us in week 2 on the Thursday night game that he just quieted the crowd that was saying, you're not going to do it this season. And I think he's going to continue to see top of the league passing attempts because he's done it every single year. Even last year as a 38-year-old, he had top of the league passing attempts. And he has arguably the best receiving core in the game with Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders leading the pack. Week 1 was just a fluke. He showed us that in week 2, putting on a great performance, he can still do it. And there's not much need to say. We're talking about Peyton Manning. So a guy who at 38 years old, he had the second most passing touchdowns in the league after Andrew Luck, and he had the 4th most passing yards with over 4,700. And that was in the 2014 season, last season. So I don't think you need to worry about Peyton Manning as an owner. It's Peyton Manning, like I've said a few times. There's nothing to worry about with him. He's still the same Peyton Manning that we're going to see.
Just hit that huge milestone, too.
Yeah, 70,000. 70,000.
Congrats to him. All right, so for my running back for overhated, I also went with a veteran in Frank Gore. Frank Gore didn't really show us what he could do in week 1. Had 8 carries, but he could only produce 31 yards from it. He was targeted 2 times. He had 2 receptions, but for 0 yards, so only a little over 3 fantasy points. But it was against Buffalo, which is a tough defense.
Very tough, yeah.
Yeah, that you got to take into consideration. I know a lot of people were skeptical. A lot of people were like, oh, Josh Robinson, their backup. He's a good rookie, but he's not going to be a problem. He only had 4 carries for 11 yards in the game against Buffalo. Clearly, Gore is getting most of the carries. It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. If people are worried, maybe Indy's going to move to Robinson instead of Gore. Gore just signed a 3-year, $12 million contract with the Colts. He's going to stay there.
Yeah.
He's a monster. He is a workhorse, and they're going to use him. In his 10-year career, Gore has rushed for under 1,000 yards in a season twice. Only 2 times he's rushed for under 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
In a 10-year career, that's unbelievable. And one of them was his rookie year in 2005, and the other was in 2010 where he got 853. So he was even close to 1,000 yards.
No.
You can't be worried about him. He left the game with, calf tightness, and people are like, oh, well, maybe he's going to get injured a lot now. He's a veteran. Can't forget, he's had 4 straight years of 16 games played all the games. He's just a monster. He had a 49ers legacy. He's on a new team now, but he is going to get better. His upcoming schedule, yes, this week he does have the Jets, which will be a tough matchup for him, but weeks 3 and 4, Titans and Jaguars. What great matchups that's going to be. I think week 1 is the absolute floor for Frank Gore, and he's only going to go up from here. Do not be worried about him. Keep him, and if somebody's willing to panic on him, jump on him and go get him.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, week 1 for the Colts was not a good week overall for the team itself, so it wasn't just him. All right, so let's move on to the overhated wide receiver. I have A.J. Green, the wide receiver of the Bengals. I think a lot of fans were shocked to hear that he did not score a single touchdown in the 33-10 victory over Oakland. He did receive the ball for 63 yards, but like I said, he did not score a touchdown. Obviously, he had 6.3 fantasy points. Since he's entered the NFL in 2011, he's caught the ball for over 1,000 yards every single season. And last season, he was hurt, and he still caught over 1,000 yards. So you should not be concerned with this week 1 performance because he'll break out of it. He's always an elite wide receiver, and he always does great things. He does play San Diego, Baltimore, Kansas City, and Seattle in the first half of the season, which may be a little tough. But I think that Andy Dalton will lean on him more when the times get tough because he didn't lean on him when they were playing the easy Oakland secondary. So Andy Dalton did lean on the new tight end, Tyler, how do you pronounce it? Eifert. Okay.
Tyler Eifert.
And he made him into a stud. So I feel like as the competition gets harder, teams will go on Mohamed Sanu, they'll go on Eifert. So they're going to rely on A.J. Green, and he's always a star-studded wide receiver. Don't hate on him too much. Get him on your fantasy team because the second half of the season, that's when you need to make the playoffs, make your push. You want to have him on your team. That's it for us right now.
Yeah.
This was a great show, I thought.
Yeah.
It's a new thing.
We hope we provided you with some, good insight here. If you have any other fantasy football questions, we would love to hear them. We will try to, answer them as quickly as we can, whether you commented on our YouTube page or put it on one of our social media sites. We'll try and get back to you. We are huge fans of fantasy football here, and we're just trying to help you guys out.
Yeah. So thank you for watching again. Just like this if you liked it. And again, 20 likes. We're going to keep this as an ongoing series. So really, do like it if you liked it because we'll keep going with it and we'll provide you with more help.
Comment and subscribe. We want to know what you thought as well. And subscribing also helps us too. We know that a lot of people actually care enough to subscribe. So that's
our show.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. See you next time.
See ya.